Boker Tov, Shalom Shalom to everyone watching here on the Ways of Israel with Rabbi Moshe Otero. And we're going to start the study for chapter 25 of the book of Sefer Haikkarim. Every morning we are trying to cover at least one chapter a day, and this way go through the whole entire work of Sefer Haikkarim of Rabbi Joseph Albo, an incredible sage who lived during a period of, you might say, horrendous persecution of the Jewish people in Spain, and was one of these individuals who was affected very much so by the inquisitions, by the different disputations taking place during his time. And we see that well impressed in his writings, including this one of Sefer Haikkarim, the very principles, the basics of Judaism and the rationale behind it, which he covers very, very well. So we're now on the last chapter of this first book. There's various books of Rabbi Joseph Albo on Sefer Haikkarim, and so we're going to be completing, with Hashem's help, this last chapter today. So come and join the Ways of Israel. Be part of what we're doing, so simply by giving a donation or just going right there to our group site where you're at now and download the membership. And it's only $100 a year, and this way you'll be informed and connected with our entity. Again, we do have various emerging communities throughout Latin America, which is part of our work, and also open for those who wish to affiliate themselves with our entity. It's an independent Sephardic movement, and so I invite you to be part of what we're doing worldwide. Most of my videos, as you've seen, majority are in Spanish because the need had to be met, and I'm seeing that more and more YouTubers are coming from the rabbinical sides that speak Spanish, which I'm very pleased to see that. Obviously, I started out many years ago when I was in radio and television here in South Florida, when we started the program Los Caminos de Israel, and it has really changed a lot of lives and really bring perspectives to a lot of the Jewish perspective on what is happening. So come and join me today. We're going to be looking at chapter 25 of Sefer Haikkarim, and Rabbi Albo enters this that he must see whether they should inquire whether there be one divine law for all mankind. And of course, this series, I'm doing this in memory of Yehuda Natan, also known as George Albo, who was a mashgiach for the ORB, the Orthodox Rabbinical Board, and worked many years there. And everyone who met him, of course, would walk away with a smile, or at least a laughter and a joke from George, no doubt about it. So my commitment after his passing over a year ago is to do something from one of his ancestors, and his ancestors being Joseph Albo. We talked about it, Albo, many times. And there are a lot of Albos, believe it or not, here in South Florida who are also descendants of the famous Rabbi George Albo. Well, let's continue forward and move this morning to the next step, which is chapter 25. Before, let me say the blessing over the coffee, since it's early morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'Yisrael v'tzivanu shehakol nihiyah bidvaro. Okay, we shall now inquire whether there must be one divine law for all mankind, or whether there may be more than one. And it would seem that there can be only one, whether we consider the matter from the point of view of the giver or from the receiver. So far as the giver is concerned, it would seem that since God, who orders all things, is one in every aspect, the order which comes from him must also be in every respect, for the relationship of God to all human beings is the same. So far as the receiver is concerned, it would seem likewise that since human species is one so far as their humanity is concerned, that order which guides them to attain their human perfection must also be one. From this it would seem that there can be only one divine law for all mankind. However, on more careful consideration, we shall find that though we may admit that so far as the giver is concerned, there should be only one, the same result does not follow if we consider the receiver. It is clear that the temperaments of men are different, either because of difference of temperance in their ancestors or for some other reasons. No two men can have the same temperament and disposition. As Ibn Sina says in his first of 10 in the first 10 of his first book of canon, the differences are so great that we find persons whose qualities are direct opposite of one from another. One man is cruel and extreme, going so far as to kill the youngest child, and another so tender-hearted that he would not kill a mouse or an ant. The difference in character and dispositions are also due to different in habitat, different lands, different in respects to air, mountain, water, and so on. There are lands in which the fruits are coarse and hard, because the air in which they grow are not pure. Then you find another land whose fruits are not sweet and wholesome, because the water by which they grow is not good. The temperament of the animal beings who are nurtured on such fruits necessarily partake of the character of the food on which they live. Another land whose fruit have a quality opposite to the other will produce animals with temperament opposite to those of the other. That is why we find in one city a district sharper and clever men than another, and it follows from that convention and customs of the two lands are different, as the temperaments of their inhabitants are different. The other land must therefore have a different law from the other at the same time. Since, however, the difference is due to the receiver and not the giver, it must relate to things which have to do with the receiver, namely in reference to the customs and the conventions concerning what is becoming and unbecoming. What is becoming in one place will be unbecoming in another, but there can be no difference in the general fundamental principles of those derived from them, because these are things which depend upon the giver. For this reason, you'll find that the Nochian laws and the Mosaic laws, though differing in matters of detail, as we shall see, agree in general matters which come from the giver. They both existed at the same time. While the Mosaic law existed in Israel, all the nations had Nochian law, or Nochian law, means the 7 universal laws that we talked about. And you could reference that also in our YouTube channels. While the Mosaic law existed in Israel, all the other nations had only the 7 universal laws, the Nochian laws, and difference was due to geographic diversity. For example, in the land of Eretz Israel being different from other lands and to national diversity due to difference in ancestry, and there is no doubt that the other nations also attained human happiness through the Nochian law, since it is divine, though they could not reach the same degree of happiness as attained by Israel through the Torah. The rabbis say that the pious men of the other nations have a share in the world to come. This shows that there can be 2 divine laws existing at the same time among different nations, and that each one of these leads those who live by it to attain human happiness, though there is a difference in degree of happiness attainable by the 2 laws. This difference in the laws are not concerned fundamentals and derivative principles. Therefore, the examination of the law itself is always the same kind. But the examination relating to the messengers may undergo change. At all events of verification, it must be direct through verification of one religion and may be different from that of another. The question, then, is whether a given divine law may change for it's the same people in the same land And we're going to take a look at that in Rabbi Joseph Zalbo's third book as we go in there. And I need to apologize because from the beginning I said there was only 25 chapters, the last chapter in this book, and unfortunately I was mistaken. There is one more chapter, chapter 26, which I'll cover tomorrow, and I want you to be with me tomorrow. It's a very short chapter, and it discussed the book. The discussion in this basic chapter is the existence of the divine law, the existence of God, the revelation of reward and punishment. Without these, we cannot conceive of divine law. So stay tuned in tomorrow's video on chapter 26. Again, I apologize for making that mistake of saying it was only 25 chapters in this first book, when in fact there's 26. Obviously very, very important, because he's referring to the whole idea of 26, which is a reference to the name of God and the revelation of God, the existence of God. So stay tuned, be with me for tomorrow's chapter 26, which will be the last chapter of the first book. And then we'll enter into the other books slowly, like we did with this first chapter at a time. May God bless you this morning, give you strength and health. And remember, be part of the Ways of Israel. Apply right here on the group page of Ways of Israel. Download the application for membership and submit it back to us. In this way, you'll receive an identification that you're a member of the Ways of Israel. Shalom, shalom, and have a wonderful week. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, Ways of Israel.